Good morning and welcome to Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. When I talked about the Greek tunic that is shown in the early artwork of Buddha, our friend Mr. Singh Jaspal raised a very pertinent question. What about the Buddha's hair, the ringlets? And that is an important question. Buddha's ringlets are not ordinary hair because in Buddhist thought and philosophy, hair is often considered as a metaphor for human beings' illusion and ignorance. Now, here is a major difference between Sikhism and Buddha philosophy, that's Buddhism. In Sikhism, hair are an integral part of the human body and must not be cut. In Buddhist philosophy, hair are called weeds of ignorance. And having a shaved head, you will see all the monks, even the Dalai Lama, you can see, they have a shaved head that symbolically represents getting rid of those illusions and ignorances. So, why should Buddha wear hair? But there is quite a story to that. And if you look at the history, you would find that Siddhartha Gautama, when he left the palace, the first thing he did was to shave off his head. And yet when we see Buddha in any other statues or any other form of art, he is portrayed with short, tight ringlet curls. And to be precise, these are 108 ringlet curls on Buddha's head. 108 is otherwise also considered an auspicious spiritual number. The rosary has 108 beads. And when they want to respect somebody in India, they say Shri 108. So one question that arises, why the artists have been portraying Buddha with short ringlets? 108 one can understand because of the spiritual significance. These are numerous beliefs. And one most pertinent one is the story. These are not hair. These ringlets are not hair. They are actually 100 dried snails. So don't be shocked. There's a story about it. As there's a story about Guru Nanak and Krishna. They had gone to sleep and a snake came and shielded them from the sun rays. So, same way, Buddha one afternoon, sunny afternoon, sat down under a tree and started to meditate. He became so immersed in his mind that he did not notice the time had passed. As time passed, the sun rays were directed to his bald head, and precious, well brought up as he was, this would have burned his bald head. So at that moment, when the sun was shining brightly and his skull was going to be sunburned, snail came the way along. The snail noticed that Buddha had sat under the tree and that sun rays were directed towards his head. Thinking Buddha was soon going to be distracted, one thing, and lose focus on the concentration due to sun rays, without a second thought, with his lubricated body, he sat on his head. Now the oil, snails if you see, they are very lubricant. So with the lubricated body, he started cooling Buddha's smooth, bare skin. And when other snails came up, they assisted there fraternal snail. So all of them combined got up on the head of Buddha. He kept meditating, and these 108 snails sat on his head like a neat cap of spirals hair. So they are not hair actually. They are the snails which form a very neat cap. And now what happened? The snails' cool and damp bodies helped maintain Buddha's meditation continue for hours. There was no disturbance. He did not feel the heat. His skull was being massaged slowly by the movement of snails. But the snails became dehydrated and dry. On the one side, they were using oil to massage the skull and lubricate it, and then they were losing the oil because of the sun rays. In the evening, when Buddha stood up from the meditation, he learned that he had been saved by these snails. And then he found he was wearing a cap of 108 snails. All of them had given their life, they had died to make a distraction-free environment for Buddha's path to enlightenment. So they became martyrs. They had laid their lives for the sake of Buddha's meditation. So to honor those snails, it was decided that Buddha's all art portrayal, whether statues or paintings or any other art form, would use these snails as ringlets to remind us of the sacrifice of these snails so that Buddha is not distracted. So the story that they gave up their body to protect Buddha from heat stroke under scorching sun. Now there are many interesting facts and hidden meanings behind Buddha statues. The iconography of Buddha is not typically meant for representing Buddha in his physical form. It aims to represent and depict Buddha's knowledge and awareness he acquired after enlightenment, not before enlightenment. So these depictions vary from style to style and from region to region. One of the most characteristic that is not changed is the style of Buddha's hair. So Buddha would be portrayed in very different manners. You can see the statues in Bamia are much different than the statue in Sarnath, if you have seen it. But the hair or the ringlets of the snails honoring, they are the same. And there's another thing in that. These hair or the snails in various Buddha statues are along with another thing, the third eye of Buddha, which is called Usnisha. Now Usnisha, the third eye of Buddha, which is a eye which opened because of enlightenment. And there have been, apart from this major story, the legend that is, there have been many other theories and discussions about Buddha's hairstyle. And outstanding one of this is what we have talked about. Now, historically speaking, before Sakyamuni Buddha, Gautam Buddha, Siddhartha, left the riches and the palace as a crown prince, he had long curly hair. Upon giving up the happiness of the palace, the first thing he did was to cut his hair with a knife. Now there are different versions of the history, whether he really actually shaved the hair completely or longer portion of the hair and small hair were left. The statues and the paintings portray Buddha having short, tiny, tight ringlets. And as I said earlier, these hair is often used as a metaphor for human beings' illusion, weeds of ignorance. So the cutting and shaving of the hair represents a part of determination to keep the body and the mind clean and then to attain enlightenment. According to the Buddhist philosophy, unless you cut the hair, because according to them, they are lifeless, they are just protuberances. So cutting them to keep them clean is the first step towards cleaning your mind. A sound mind in a sound body. So a clean mind in a clean body. So hair has to be removed. But the martyrs have also got to be honored. There have been cases, you would see that the Buddha's head in some part is neither shaved nor long. They are just there. But then they represent the life between the extremes of indulgence and mortification. Now, what's the historic evidence of the hair of Buddha? In one of the very little known historical evidence is a brief written by a person at that time. This brief I saw in the British Museum. It is handwritten account of a hunter. He stumbled upon Buddhists meditating in the forest, and he saw the farmer Sakyamuni sitting beneath a tree. Seeing the bald head, he took it as a bad omen and stopped hunting that particular day. He said, well, I've seen an ascetic and this ascetic is not a Brahmin, he is in fact a Kshatriya. So when he saw Buddha in his monk's robes, he was mortified. He said, look here, this is not a good day for hunting. In the beginning, he thought that this ascetic was not a human being. It was Lord Brahma come on the earth. But then he inspected Buddha closely. He saw that this Brahma was missing the usual tuft of hair at the back of his head. You know the choti. At all Brahmins, at the back of the head, they have a small knot of hair, which they call choti. And this is the important part. Now this is generally termed, this choti, this tuft of hair. In Sanskrit they call it shikha. And shikhas are taken as the identity of Brahmins. So the textual evidence makes it debatable whether Buddha was bald or had hair. Of course, we don't really know what the historical Buddha looked like. As the first statues of Buddha were created 200 years after he received nirvana. As Buddha is portrayed under the ringlets of the hair, the story, what I told you about the snake, is important. But Buddha's statues are not the accurate physical representation of the prince turned spiritual leader, the Buddha. Now the question isn't just whether the hair represents the snails or what the 100 snails present recall. That Buddhism heavily utilized symbolism of Hindu culture to convey the message. It does not mean that Buddha actually had snails on the head. This story might have been created. The number 108 represents two things. One is a sign of holiness, which I discussed. Then another one in Atharvaveda. 108 number represents 108 mental afflictions. So in traditional Buddhist thought, as in Atharvaveda, people are said to have 108 afflictions or kleshas. There are 6 senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch and consciousness. So multiply these 6 by 3 reactions: positive, negative or indifference, because reaction can only be 3. So 6 senses, 3 reactions: total makes 18 feelings. Now each of these feelings can be either attached to player or detached from player. Naturally, in some feeling you get attachment and some you won't. So that 18 becomes 36. Now each of which represents or is manifested in the past, present and future, 3. So which corresponds to sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, consciousness, multiplied by positive, negative, indifferent attitudes, multiplied by attachment and non-attachment, multiplied by past, present, future. So 6 into 3 into 2 into 3 comes to 108. And that represents these here. In this sense, snails and their heart cells essentially represent mindful concentration which guards against all these afflictions. So the snails, 108, on the one side they are martyrs, one story, the other is they are guarding against these 108 afflictions because they are on the head. So any affliction which comes, they absorb it and do not let it percolate the brain and the mind. So quite interesting. And as a matter of fact, quite legendary as it is a romance of its own. So the Buddhas here represent 3 things. 1 is not natural. B, protection for afflictions. And C, the sacrifice of the snails to protect Buddha, showing thereby that even the insects were impacted by his personality and wanted to protect him. That is what Buddha's ringlets are. Thank you.